Now, guys, if we had to make a cheesy late night commercial.
Yes, I would pour boiling water on your head if that's what you're asking. I would do that in a heartbeat, Gordo. Don't worry.
You can't ask us to create an entire pitch for an advertisement on the fly. Yeah.
This is what the people want.
Okay, then tell the people how you would do it.
Gordo would be the diaper king.
You'd be the sofa king, right?
Yeah, I would be.
Sofa king what?
Sofa King in trouble with his wife every time he talks out loud on this podcast.
Sitting right there. I'm not keeping my mouth shut there. Learned my lesson last week.
Did you?
I don't think you learned it.
I didn't learn it, no.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Detroiters. Detroiters went 20 episodes with only 2 seasons on Comedy Central. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called Pilot, originally airing February 14th, 2017. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, most of the boys, Nick, Joe, and Gordo. No Ferg this week. What's going on, guys?
Heyo.
Hello.
When you tell him, what's up, Doc? And for Ferg, since he's not here, garbage woman. Because that's what I would imagine Ferg would say.
I have to correct myself, actually. February 7th, 2017 is when that aired, so forgive me. So Detroiters, this was one of those, this was my pick, but I've never seen the show. And basically, part of the mindset behind it was, so Tim Robinson has his sketch comedy show, I Think You Should Leave. And that's been blowing up on Netflix. And every time I turn Instagram or anything on, I'm getting clips from that show constantly now. Like, are you sure about that? And now there's the drive-through one.
Yeah, he got memed really hard. Yeah.
So it's become this big meme thing. And so I'm looking into that, and I realized oh yeah, Detroiters was a show that multiple people had requested that we do, and I just think it backburnered, just whatever, for whatever reason we never did it. And I'm like, you know what, this dude's all over everything right now. Maybe this is probably a smart time to watch this show and review it.
It's funny though, because this could just be me being completely out of the loop, but I'm a big fan of I Think You Should Leave. I love Tim Robinson. I had not heard of this show until you mentioned it, though. So I don't know if that's a common thing, but this one totally blew by me.
I think it's Comedy Central, man. No offense to Comedy Central, but they've just dropped so far in the exposure level from what they used to be. You know what I mean? And they would always put out new shows for people. They're the first. I think the Aquafina show maybe is still getting fairly good ratings, and that's maybe going into a 3rd season or something, but it just is most people cut the cord from cable, and if that stuff's not also streaming on a platform you have, I think a lot of people just don't see Comedy Central anymore. It's not like when we were kids where you'd watch it all day because they were just going to play PCU over and over again or something, and you were like, well, that's my afternoon.
It's not even the place to watch stand-up comedy anymore. No specials are going to Comedy Central. Everyone's going to either Netflix or YouTube or just putting them anywhere else. So you don't find yourself on that channel much anymore.
Only if you're a fan of South Park, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, South Park is probably the thing keeping it alive, but people are probably watching that mostly through HBO now, or the Max or whatever.
Sam Richardson, who is the other main character on this show, is primarily in the 3rd season of I Think You Should Leave. He's not very much in the 1st and the 2nd from what I remember. I don't think I've seen the full 2nd season of I Think You Should Leave. It's weird, he just popped up in the 3rd season primarily. I think he's in a bunch of the skits for the 3rd season, unless I'm misremembering the 1st season too, but he's hilarious too. I weirdly know him mostly from Veep.
Well, I was going to say in Veep, no, Veep wouldn't have kept him busy because that didn't really cross over into the I Think You Should Leave, but
you know where you should know him from? Him as well as Eddie Champagne are both in Ghostbusters 2016, the movie that Jay starred in. So they're co-stars of yours, Jay.
Oh, so that's a quick 6 degrees right there, yeah.
Yeah, you 3 were all in a terrible movie together. Congratulations.
Sam Richardson has another show called Champagne Ill that I guess only went 10 episodes. It's on Hulu or something, but I guess it's also pretty funny.
This is one of those shows, too, where Detroit is so... This was, produced by Lauren Michaels and Jason Sudeikis is a producer on this as well, right?
Yeah.
This is Boardwalk, which is Laura Michaels. You used to always see it. Speaking of Comedy Central, you'd always see it at the end of SNL reruns and the end of Kids in the Hall episodes that played constantly on Comedy Central when we were kids.
And Sam Richardson is one of the creators of this show. And I thought Tim Robinson was, but I don't think he actually is.
Oh, I thought he was a creator too.
Oh, he's not?
A quick IMDb look. If I did some further investigating.
No, it is part. He is. It's 4 creators. He's one of them.
Okay, all right. He just didn't make the top 3. That's how the IMDb typically works. And then I wanted to mention too, going over like general ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, it gets a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes with an 89% audience, and then IMDb ratings has it like at 8.1. So this is a pretty well regarded show amongst those who have actually watched it.
Now, did this show get canceled, or did they just kind of stop?
Canceled.
Interesting.
But I do want to say too, I want to say when this got canceled, it like 2 or 3 years ago, it was also when like Comedy Central, if you remember, and a bunch of those channels were like, we're getting rid of all of our scripted shows. We're getting rid of all of this stuff that costs a ton of money to produce. Then we're going to concentrate on easier content like game shows and late nights talk shows and panel shows, right? When you'd have like After Midnight and shows like that.
Oh yeah, because those cost nothing.
Yeah. So they're pivoting to that where you can pay people scale to be on them, but you're not paying for sets to be created and permits and, filming locations. I mean, this entire series is shot in Detroit proper. So now you have to pay for all of these permits and everything in Michigan versus where, like, if you're doing a show like this, I mean, a classic example, right? RoboCop takes place in Detroit, Michigan. They filmed it in Dallas, Texas, right? Because Michigan is not a place that's as cheap to shoot as other places. So people don't typically go there. You mask another city for it. So
yeah, Toronto is like famous for that. For years and years, Toronto was like the go-to place to turn into other cities for whatever, movies.
Boston, too.
Boston now gets a lot more.
The problem with Vancouver, though, is that you can see mountains in it a lot. I think it's Rumble in the Bronx with Jackie Chan, where he's like, we gotta get out of the Bronx! And they go running, and you just see, like, fucking cascading mountains in the background. You're like, somehow I don't think you're deep in the heart of New York right now.
Earlier, when you mentioned how I had starred in the 2016 film Ghostbusters.
I wouldn't say starred.
Well, I would. So when we walked, I wasn't there for a week, and we were filming at the Wang Theater. When you walked out of the Wang Theater, they converted that whole street to be New York City, and it's like,
I remember that, yeah.
And we didn't go through the front door; we were going through the back, like to check in and everything. So I hadn't seen it until we had to go out there for something, and to see it like live in like it's not like a small part, like the whole street is just converted completely, and like I've been on that street a million times, and to not recognize it. Like, was insane.
It was like when they turned Revere Beach into Miami with some Johnny Depp movie. What movie was that?
Oh, the one where he played Whitey Bulger.
Oh, yeah.
Black Mass?
Oh, yeah. I don't think I ever actually saw the movie.
It was good.
Yeah, they
I liked it.
put a bunch of palm trees down there and shit.
Do you like The Departed?
Yes.
Don't see Black Mass.
Okay. I feel like I did watch Black Mass. I just don't remember it.
I don't think that's the gauge. You can...
I think it is. I think that they never should have made Black Mass after Departed came out, because Departed is a much better movie about Whitey Bulger. They just don't say it's Whitey Bulger.
Sure, but I don't know. They can coexist. You can like multiple documentaries on the same topic.
Sure, I'm just saying. I like everybody who was in Black Mass. I just don't think it's a very good movie.
I don't think it's as good as The Departed.
Did Black Mass have a lot to do with John Connolly there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I did see it. Yeah.
But anyways. This is a far departure from Detroiters. So
you could say that's the Departed from.
Again,
Detroit.
For those of you who aren't listening, Gordo's so much quicker when we're not recording.
Yeah, Gordo made an actual joke we actually laughed at like 3 minutes before we put the video on.
It wouldn't have made the cut.
No, it would not.
Gordo, why don't you repeat that joke right now and see what the audience has to say about it?
But I'll say this: lightning quick response time, and then. When he has a joke already in his mind, but we're recording, he goes, how about we say this instead?
Yeah.
It's like, before we get into the actual episode itself, I do want to remind you guys, go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to our social media, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. S1E1pod on those. Hit us up. We like talking to you guys and finding out what shows you want us to cover and just general chit-chat. Just really cool to kind of meet a lot of you guys over the last couple of years and learn how you found us and stuff like that. So we get right into the intro of the show, and it's a very quick intro, and it's just you kind of see the two main characters driving through Detroit, kind of a quick theme song, And it's just basically exterior shots of like the city, but there's that light animation over like pieces of things. Like if it was the bike, like maybe a little bit of the inner rim of the wheel would have some animation to it, like nothing big.
I like that. Quick and easy. Show me the city so I know where we are.
It was okay, largely forgettable.
But it's fine. It's like it's not much, but it's
If
fine.
there's one thing I've learned doing this podcast, it's that I actually don't know what my preference is for intros. Because most of the time I'm like, okay, yeah, quick and easy, get into the show. But then you have things like Full House, and it's like, I love this intro. It's long, arguably too long, especially in the first season. So I don't know. I mean, I guess if it's done right, you can go either way with it.
I just don't think anybody can do it right now is the problem. I think it existed
Yeah,
so
true.
well in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and that's why we love them and we're nostalgic for them. Like some show being like, he's a two-time loser. You're like, oh, I want to hear the story of this show. If they did that now to like Broad City or something, you'd be like, what are they doing? This makes no sense.
Right.
I think the reason is also that like shows nowadays are longer, right? Like most of these shows are coming out in a streaming
You want the time
network.
for the content, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want 2 minutes to be,
But there are shows where you look at even like The Office or a Parks and Rec where there's no lyrics attached, but just those songs did become iconic in a more modern world. Like there is room for that still. Like not that they were super long intros, but people still like that comfort of like, oh, my show is about to start.
Those are a gray area though, because there's no lyrics, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a right answer, right? Like there are shows that have short little intros or virtually no intro that in you like this is the way to go, and we've covered that over the last couple of years. There are times like, oh, this is so good that there's no intro and they just flash the screen. But then every now and again you catch something and you're like, this is really cool. I'm glad they did like the old school style.
it's kind of like a chicken and the egg type thing, right? Like we talk about like Full House. Is the intro good on its own, or does the show make the intro? Have we seen an example? I mean, I'm sure we have, of where the intro song slaps, but the show sucks.
I can't think of one off the
It's
top
a good
of my
question,
head,
actually. I can't think of one. I'm sure it does exist, though.
but I do think that when you look at like, and we keep saying Full House, and you know that composer did a few other
Step by
big
Step.
shows, yeah, Family Matters. So like, yeah, those are all great shows, but there's a reason that they all hired the same person too to do them. Like,
I think the thing we're missing here, though, is that those shows versus now, there's a different scenario. Now we have the skip intro button, and most people are watching on that. And even a show like Full House or The Office, where I love the theme song, I will probably watch it once if I'm watching, say, 3 or 4 episodes in a row.
for sure.
At episodes 3, 4, and 5, skip. I don't care. The only shows that still do that now are like the true crime documentaries, where it's just like, oh, we're gonna go through this weird, slow plotting, full plot, like cast thing for super long, and you're like, who would watch that? Why?
If you're about to like sit down and binge like 8 episodes of the same show in one sitting, there's no need to watch the intro over and over and over again.
I don't know why there isn't an auto skip option. Like, why is that not a thing? Like, yes, always skip the intro. Just do it.
Like you can always turn on subtitles.
Because what always happens is you're watching, and then the thing pops up to skip, and you're like, "Fuck, where's the remote?" You miss it.
You miss
have to
it.
hit it's so infuriating.
It doesn't even last the whole intro.
Yeah.
You only like get to skip it if you catch it in the first like 5 seconds. If
Right.
you don't,
Exactly. Yeah.
you have to like ride it out for some reason.
Although one thing I learned only on Peacock, if you miss it and then you pause, you can skip it still.
You can do that on most of them, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
can you?
Yeah. You just hit pause, and you usually just hit up from like the navigation bar, and it will pop back up.
Before TV decided to go kaputski on us a few months ago, we always watch SNL like the day after every Sunday morning. And I've loved SNL my entire life, but I have no need to watch the intro with like, Norm Macdonald! Like, I don't want to watch all of that every time.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that it has something to do with like music rights or anything? Or do you think that they're already, I mean, I know that they're already all paid there to get their money, but do you think it has something to do with that?
Probably not. I mean, this one uses music. And then a lot of shows, ones that have their own custom song instead of like a licensed song, are paying for that song to be made. So they're not paying, unless the artist has royalties attached to syndication, like they've given them a lump sum to like, we bought this song.
For using it.
Most people will have royalties or publishing rights to it.
I think those royalties are paid through the
Like a different, like ASCAP and
through
BMI
the
or
networks
something.
that are airing them more so than, it's not like the people who own or produce the show have to pay.
Or there's a deal usually to be like, you can use it in perpetuity for TV and streaming, but you can't use it for DVD and Blu-ray. Like, that's usually how it works. You pay a lump sum versus paying a few pennies every time it airs in syndication, which is like an easier way of doing it. We're like, we'll give these guys $5,000 and just whatever, you know.
I think we should go ahead and start talking about Detroiters.
Sure. And this episode, real quick though, does have a good amount of licensed music in it. There's like 2 different death songs. And
I was gonna bring that up when we got to it, which I thought was crazy weird. That like, but we'll get to that later. Yeah. So we start off by seeing people setting up for this commercial shoot for a hot tub company. Just right off the bat, we see that it's like a single camera show, which is kind of the style for a lot of the more modern shows, but worth noting, has that more cinematic single camera instead of the 3-camera kind of classic sitcom that we're used to. And we've debated back and forth about preference there, you know. For the show, it works. We see the director's chair for like the star of the commercial, and that's Eddie Champagne, and he is the hot tub king. So as they're getting ready for this commercial, you see someone putting on like the robe and crown on him. And also you see them boiling some hot water off to the side.
They're using like the hot plate that you use if you're going to like fry a turkey.
Yeah, or do like a clam bake.
Yeah, clam bake. It's very much, clam bake makes more sense, right? Because
if you're like tailgating, you would use them. Yeah. And we see the 2 main characters of the show, Tim and Sam, making sure like everything is good to go. And like they start up. And we have Eddie Champagne going, "Hey folks, it's me, Eddie Champagne, the hot tub king of Detroit. If you don't like my prices, I'm going to be the one in hot water." And then the guy just dumps a bucket of boiling hot water on his head. He's just like, shit. Like, he's like, you see steam coming off of him. And I don't know why. It was like so simple and like no one else really reacted to it. So it made it like even funnier.
Yeah. This is great that they then play up to him. She's like, that reaction's going to look so good on the commercial.
Yeah. I thought he'd be bullshit too after, but he was into it.
I think he's so wrapped up in the, like, we're filming a commercial that if he thinks it looks good for the commercial, he's okay with it.
Yeah.
He's like $1 bill.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And he doesn't come off as, like, the smartest dude or anything like that either. Not that he comes off, like, dumb, but...
No, he comes off kind of dumb.
Yeah, I'd say he comes off kind of dumb, to be honest with you. Yeah.
He's older than them, but he's not, like, he doesn't come off, like, the authoritative role or by any means.
This guy, too, Steve Higgens, the actor, I mentioned earlier, because he's in the Ghostbusters movie with you, Jay. He's on SNL a bunch as like little kind of jokey characters, but he's been writing for SNL since 1995.
Oh, wow.
Really? No shit, wow.
He's going to be one of the longest tenure. That's longer than Keenan's been there.
Right, yeah. I mean, almost 30 years. It's pretty wild. And if you think of how many things you've laughed at on SNL since 1995, I mean, that like mid to late 90s period has so much stuff from our childhood that I think about so often. So pretty awesome that he's just like a funny dude who can like make a upfront appearance in this for like a one-off, and he nails it.
Yeah.
Now, guys, if we had to make a cheesy late night commercial,
yes, I would pour boiling water on your head if that's what you're asking. I would do that in a heartbeat, Gordo. Don't worry.
You can't ask us to create an entire pitch for an advertisement on the fly. Yeah.
This is what the people want.
Okay, then tell the people how you would do it.
Gordo would be the diaper king.
I'd be the poop king, actually. But no, I don't know. I was hoping somebody would jump in and
oh, really? The question you prepared for, you don't know how to answer, but we're expected to know on the fly how to answer this.
I'm the idea guy. I floated out, and I'm a collaborator, Jay. I'm a team player.
We put an umbrella hat on you with dollar bills hanging off of it so that we can reference Dollar Bill, one of our great New England heroes. And then we pour the pot of boiling hot water on you to see if the umbrella shields you or not.
Yep.
And then you scream S1E1 while you're writhing on the ground.
You'd be the sofa king, right?
Yeah, I would be.
Sofa king what?
Sofa king in trouble with his wife every time he talks out loud on this podcast.
Sitting right there. I'm not keeping my mouth shut there. Learned my lesson last week.
Did you?
I don't think you learned it.
I didn't learn it, no.
But yeah, so anyways, when this commercial is kind of wrapping up, Sam gets a text that somebody's at the chop house, so him and Tim need to run off. So Tim kind of says, like, that's a wrap, and they abandon this shoot.
Chop house. I really thought they said trap house, and I'm like, this is weird.
You didn't notice afterwards when they pulled up to the chop house?
I didn't. I never put it together. I was so confused thinking about why they were talking about a trap house. I didn't realize the name of the place.
So we get a few transitional shots of the city, and then We end up at the Chop House. Before we even go into it, I've been to Detroit very, very recently. I was there like a few weeks ago. Have you guys ever been to Detroit? Any of you?
I was gonna say you went and you got to go to Motown. I was very jealous. I've never been to Detroit.
I can't remember, but I don't think I've been to Detroit. No.
It was like a random, like for me, it was a really last minute decision, and I was like, you know what? I have a thing where I want to go to every baseball park, and I was like, well, where's somewhere that I don't think I'm ever gonna have like a full-fledged vacation? I'm like, Detroit. That's easy enough. It's a couple hour flight. So, I flew out in the morning and we did a couple breweries. I went to a baseball game, did some Detroit-style pizza, and then went to the Motown Museum and flew back home the same day.
What is Detroit-style pizza?
Yeah.
Detroit-style pizza is square. Yeah, it's like a rectangular pan pizza with kind of like an airy crust. Technically, Little Caesars is Detroit-style pizza, but like the fast food version of it.
If you ever see pizza, Nick, where it looks like there's two big stripes of sauce over the cheese.
Airy crust reminds me of like a Greek crust.
Well, it's not far because it's a pan pizza.
Yeah.
So so you're gonna get like that similar vibe, and there is like a Greek town which is part of like.
Is it greasy like Greek pizza?
Where I went wasn't super greasy. No, we went to like Buddy's, which there's like multiple locations now. They're like considered the original, but they're basically like a chain in the area now.
Is there anything really better than just your classic New York style pizza?
No, I mean at the end of the day. If we're going to tangent and talk pizza for a minute.
I prefer Greek pizza.
All I want is like New York style, like an Italian pizza. I'm not a big Greek pizza fan.
I don't dislike Greek by any means, but if I'm picking one, I would definitely go towards
I don't
Italian.
dislike Italian, but the Greek pizza, they always put the cheese on the toppings and then more cheese over the toppings. And as a pepperoni and cheese guy, that to me is like the top of pizza
That's
world.
why I don't like it. I don't think you need that much cheese on pizza, which is my thing with Greek pizza.
I literally order extra cheese on every pizza I get.
I also love a good like bakery pizza that has almost no cheese. Like sometimes they're just sauce and bread.
I like it, but as a different thing. And I don't know if we ever talked about it here. I kind of feel like we did, but maybe we just independently talked about it. Bakery pizza is good for what it is, but it's a different thing.
Yeah, I'm never going to get like bakery pizza for dinner. Like,
if you came by and I'm like, hey, I got some extra pizza in the kitchen if you want some, and you went in and it was bakery pizza, you're like, well, that's not what I thought.
I would still enjoy it though.
Yeah, sure.
For me, that was always a holiday thing. Like we always got a big bakery pizza Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I would remember like going, if I went to like the bakery with one of my parents when I was a kid for like a holiday, and like I just never had a huge sweet tooth. So when it was like me and my brother could like, oh, like, and if you guys want something, like we're getting a box to bring to whoever's house. But then, like, say, like, if you want a cookie or a half moon or something, and I would typically, if they had bakery pizza, get a slice of that because, like, that's just more appealing to me.
I would do the same, yeah. Oddly, not a cannoli.
Cannoli Joe.
Remember the upper crust in Harvard? You could get, like, was it the upper crust? Am I confusing that?
Crazy Doughs?
Crazy Doughs?
Where was it in Harvard?
But remember, you could get, like, your pepperoni and cheese slices, regular, traditional, circle cut. But then they also had the square ones. Were those square ones Detroit style?
Pinocchio's. You're thinking of Pinocchio's. That was Sicilian.
Sicilian, okay.
Yeah, like a square pizza is usually Sicilian. The pan pizza aspect of it kind of makes it Detroit style.
Is there any difference in Sicilian pizza and like the square pizza always tastes a little different? Is there really a difference, or is I'm just making that up in my head?
Well, square pizza is Sicilian pizza.
Yeah.
No, but he's saying that it's tasting different even though it's all the same shit.
Exactly.
Oh, then regular pizza.
Correct.
It's like waffles and pancakes. It's the same
dough.
batter.
The dough is so different. Like, it's so much thicker. Like, you're talking a really thick piece of dough. And
yeah, it's probably the ratio is what you're tasting differently.
And I don't know. I mean, I might have said this on here before. I forget where I had heard it. Someone had said, like, the crazy thing about pizza, it's like the same few ingredients. But if you go to like 1,000 different places, it tastes different.
They're all going to be, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about burgers, too. We have 2 places that we order burgers from, and they're wildly different burgers. You know what I mean?
And like, it's the same things. Like, how did that happen? But yeah. To go back to this, we get to the Chop House, and we see Tim and Sam pull up in front of it. And from inside the car, they're like getting ready to go in. So they both put on like ties and blazers. And then they take out a bottle of steak sauce and like toss some on their ties, which
I was so confused when
at the moment, I'm like, I'm glad there was a payoff to it. It did have me thinking. I know we just tangented and talked about food, but we do that all the time here. Like, I love steak sauce, but I don't think I've had it in like years at this point.
I had it like a week ago.
Yeah, me too.
I go for the good steak over a steak that needs sauce, I think.
Well, that's the thing is, as I've gotten older, I tend to buy like a nicer steak, and then it doesn't feel right to dump like A1 on it.
I've said this before on the podcast, and you guys all yelled at me, but I would eat 8 million cheeseburgers over one steak. I like steak. I just don't. I prefer a burger to it. So I buy really nice steak. We'll cook it on the grill, but I still put steak sauce on it.
Well, I mean, if you're going to offer it that way, if you say I can have 8 million burgers or one steak, I mean,
That's my qualifier. It's a numbers game.
It's foolish on my part to say, give me the steak. Like, I mean, come on.
I personally think steak is at its best form when it's with cheese and in a sub.
Oh, so when you make a burger out of the steak, yeah.
Yes.
Or like a steak sandwich, yeah.
Pretty much.
What about steak sauce on a burger?
I've done it. I do it at Five Guys sometimes. They offer it as one of their options.
But we've talked about what we like on our burgers before. We all have wildly different
we've had that.
toppings.
So, yeah, so to get back into this, they run in and they talk to their friend who's the busboy. That's the one who had texted them, and they're asking where somebody is. And he points over to the corner booth, and we see a man by the name of Carter Grant, and he's telling a story to the other people sitting around him at the table. Carter Grant, played by Jason Sudeikis on here. Like I said, he's one of the producers of the show.
That's a good get to get a big star, a pretty big star to play, a cameo in your first episode shows a lot of.
But he's a producer of the show. He's
Sure.
invested in this. So
I didn't know that's who Jason Sudeikis was.
we did
Ted Lasso on this show like a month ago, Gordo.
Well, he looked different because he had a mustache, Joe.
Wow.
I did not even put two and two together.
You usually don't.
I want to play like Guess Who or something with Gordo, where like an idea of a mustache can change somebody's look so much that he has no idea who the person is anymore.
I really didn't put two and two together. Okay, so that's Jason Sudeikis.
That's Jason Sudeikis, yeah.
We also talked about SNL like 50 times in this episode. He was on SNL for like 10 years, no mustache.
I only watched the Weekend Update Instagram. That's about the only funny thing on SNL going.
Oh, so now, so your only knowledge of SNL now is basically when Colin Jost has to read black jokes.
Pretty much.
And that's what you think is the only funny thing about the show. Also lends to your sense of humor, Gordo.
In any event, so they see him sitting in the corner booth. They rush over, and while they're doing it, Tim has he's doing like the fake phone call thing where he's like, "Oh, $1 million? Yeah."
This scene right here, this is when I figured out what the humor of this show is. This show is just a modern take on Freddy Got Fingered. This is the scene where he goes into the restaurant with the fake phone, and instead of yelling $1 million, he yells, 40 million Deutschmarks? You're fucking fired, Bob. I say Helsinki. Like, the scene is just that scene in Freddy Got Fingered.
Right, but I would not say that Detroiters as a whole is the modern take on Freddy Got Fingered.
I think it's it's an updated version of that very type of humor.
I actually got kind of like a Workaholics vibe.
I can see Workaholics a bit too. I will say though, I hold Freddy Got Fingered in a huge regard. I love that movie. That's not an insult.
I just think that movie is a little more out there, a little more wild than some of the antics.
Yeah.
Where this is it has its moments, but a little bit more grounded in reality. When they get to the table and start to introduce themselves, I kind of like that. And by the way, we find out that Carter Grant is the VP of marketing for Chrysler. And when he asked him, like, have we met? I like we're about to, Sam Duvet. And I was like, I don't know why I like that line so much. I just thought it was so like, there was such like a...
It's like a salesman move, yeah.
There was like a charisma and like confidence that go behind that, yeah.
It exudes an air of confidence that none of us have ever had.
Also, I want to say, to this day, anytime people mention Chryslers now, I have to think about Me, Myself, and Irene.
Get your cock out of my Chrysler.
It's embedded in my brain forever now.
I feel like that movie oddly comes up. Is that maybe the last like real funny Jim Carrey movie? I think it might be.
Might be, yeah.
Yeah. Was Liar Liar after that?
No, it was definitely
No.
before that, yeah.
Okay.
And it was the return of Seabass.
Yes. Cam Neely, Boston's own.
Yeah. So quick pivot on that. So I had Bruins season tickets for, I don't know, like it was like 8 years. And they used to have like a State of the Bruins address. And they let all the season ticket holders go to the garden. They had like an area sectioned off, and like a bunch of like VPs and stuff like that would all be sitting like at a table, kind of like in the middle of the arena. And there was a year I did it, and you had to like, they would screen your question ahead of time. So this was like not that funny, but I thought it was hilarious at the time. I was a lot younger. And I asked whatever fake question so they'll let me stand up. And I just asked Cam Neely, like, does anyone ever like on the street, like just yell Seabass at you? And he like, I mean, I was generally curious. I just knew they wouldn't let me ask him if I asked that ahead of time. And he found no humor in that at all. Like, he just deadpanned. He's like, yeah, sometimes. And I'm like, okay, I feel like a shithead now. But like,
you wouldn't think a guy who would do that scene with a hat that says "Wine me, dine me, 69 me,"
Yeah.
who does a like "I'm gonna rape a guy" scene. Which, if you ever watch the unrated version of Dumb and Dumber, he pulls his pants down so that his whole pubes pop out too, right? Like he goes full on in that. To then be like embarrassed by that, I find a little that bums me out.
Then when you become like, you know, like the general manager or president of operations and like
Of a major sports team, you have to play it down. Yeah,
it's a different situation than when you're like a freshly retired player. To go back into this, Tim introduces himself and he says, "Oh, I'm Tim Cramblin from Cramblin Advertising." And the woman at the table is like, "Oh, are you Hank's son?" And you know, so this was Hank Cramblin originally had this advertising firm, and now Tim, the son, has taken over. She asks how he's doing, and he's like, "Oh, he went insane, and he lives in a nut house now." Oh, well, tell next time you see him, say that Sally Pomerantz from Chicago said hello. He's like, he won't understand that. Talking to him is like talking to Bugs Bunny. Like, well, then you tell him, "What's up, Doc?" Thank you. That'll mean a lot to him.
that exchange being played so seriously is so fucking funny.
Her saying "What's up, Doc?" in that legit serious tone was I did like that a lot.
Do you know who plays the dad later on in the series, by the way?
I didn't look it up. I kind of stayed up
Detroit legend Kevin Nash.
Oh, no shit.
Really?
Yeah, so his dad, who was not dead, but he's in the nut house now, is played by Kevin Nash.
Oh, that's awesome. And he's like a legit Detroit guy. Yeah.
Who talks about Detroit pizza pretty much constantly. And if you've listened to his podcast, sometimes you have to fast forward because you're like, this is a lot of pizza talk.
I would say someone would argue the same for us at times.
I was going to say, we have something in common with Kevin
Nash. Yeah, we
Nash.
went on a long pizza rant not long ago. So then Sam starts to talk to her, and he's like, "Oh, you're just as I imagined you, only the wrong color." And evidently he imagines everyone as black, which he even thinks is probably because he himself is black.
I like how this needed to be explained for some reason.
Yeah.
See, the reason he imagined you as black is because he himself is black. They're talking like, "Oh, you know, we just want to talk to you all because we just finished eating. You might notice that we have stains on our ties and we have a receipt."
The receipt really makes that for me, especially because that's like, you can't read it. You know what I mean? So like, it could just be a receipt from like, well, it'd be a lot longer for some CVS, but like a receipt from like a store for anything, you know?
Also, like, realistically, there'd never be a moment where he questioned, like, do these people even actually eat here? That you have to like dump steak sauce all over your tie for no reason.
We've also talked before about this, about wearing ties while eating, and you move your tie back over your shoulder. You shouldn't be spilling steak sauce on your tie.
Yeah, that's like the wedding move too. And I think of that only because it's the only time I'm wearing a tie and eating.
Right, yeah. You just flip it over your shoulder while you eat.
And they tell Carter they want to throw their name in the hat for the next ad campaign. He has some reservations about this, thinks that they might be a little too small for a company like Chrysler. And they say, like, you know, you can't go with these guys. Like, they're from Chicago. It's like, you make your cars in Detroit. Like, you should make your ads there too. And after they said that, like, he kind of caves and he's like, "All right, well, you guys can have a meeting, 8 a.m. Well, he just says 8. And Tim doesn't understand that he means a.m.
I can't do that.
He's like, "Oh, I can't do that. I have dinner with my wife. I absolutely can't do 8.
So as we found out, he eats dinner not at the time most of us do, but earlier than Nick does. He has dinner at 8 o'clock. Nick, is that better for you? Could you start to get dinner at 8?
Yes. Hey, I'm all for later dinners.
So, joke aside of him not understanding what he meant by 8 o'clock, if this was that important, if you had an opportunity...
That's what's funny about it, is he immediately said no because he had dinner to go to.
With his wife. And it wasn't even like, go out to dinner. It was just like, I'm going to have dinner at home with my wife.
I'm in sales. I got a phone call a few weeks ago. I'm making dinner. Person calls and says, "Hey, so here's what's up. We scheduled this call for you to talk to all of us, but we forgot to invite you. So everybody from our organization is here right now. It is 7:30 p.m. on the East Coast. Can you come and talk to us?" Then I said, "Give me 5 minutes. Send me the link. I'll be right there." Because that's what you do if you're trying to like be in sales and get a big deal. If it was a smaller deal, I wouldn't have. But if you're a small company trying to get Chrysler cars, you skip dinner with your wife at 8 o'clock.
They sprint out, and the second after they get this meeting confirmed, they sprint outside, and as soon as they get to the bottom of the steps, Sam just starts puking, like, aggressively.
Fucking killed me when the couple walks by, or the two dudes walk by.
I think it was two
and
dudes.
Tim's like, "No, the food's actually really good. This
The food's
wasn't
good.
from that."
This is something else. Yeah.
And then Sam goes, "Yeah, save room for dessert." And get thrown off. I
It works
fucking
so well.
lost
They
it.
went in though. If I walked out, people were walking out of a restaurant throwing up, and I could tell that they weren't just like visibly too drunk. I would probably decide to maybe not go to the restaurant that day.
I would turn right around. No ifs, no ands, no buts.
Feels like
Yeah.
an Arby's night. Anyway, time to go.
I would just assume that person would drank too much. I would never assume it was the food, really.
If you're going to Chop House, it sounds like this was an expensive meal and you probably needed a reservation.
I mean, this is like a Ruth's Chris type place.
Yeah,
I'm
if
sure
you're
it's,
about to walk inside, you're not like, well, never mind.
Or maybe they ate something that's always dicey, right? Like we had oysters where like that could, just get you, right? Because you never know.
So the next scene, we're inside of Cramblin Advertising, and the secretary, who's like this older woman, is starting to like turn the lights off and kind of get ready to pack it in for the day. Covers her typewriter.
So slowly with a typewriter cover. Oh, maybe so happy and so longing for the better old times.
It's kind of like the vibe is when you look inside, it's almost like when Tim's dad went crazy. Tim like took over, but there's been no growth in the company. Now it's just kind of locked in this time machine.
He didn't change anything.
Yeah, it's like what his dad last left, and not to preserve it just because he just doesn't know what to do.
Right.
Well, later on, we find out that they don't have clients.
Well, yeah, no, they have some. I mean, they filmed the commercial in the beginning. They're not.
They don't
what
have
once
any
were.
of the previous clients. They have their own they
Correct.
found, though.
The secretary heads over to the office where Tim and Sam are, and we can already hear them from their voices ahead of time, and they're just kind of bouncing ideas back and forth. And she walks into the doorway and says, "I'm taking off for the day unless there's anything you need, anything at all, Big Hank," because she's old and like senile and thinks that Tim is his father. And he tries to correct her and says, like, "I'm Tim, remember?" And she just goes, "Whoops, I dropped my pencil." And then she can't, she's so old, she can't bend over to pick the pencil back up. And she's trying to be seductive. And she's like stuck against the wall. And I'm like,
can I just leave it?
can I just leave it here? Like, yes, please just leave it.
I love how they play like seductive music as well as she's trying to bend over. Really makes the scene.
I love too if you look up this woman who you like assume she's been some character actor for like 45 years and she's like down to do funny stuff now because she knows she's aged into a different role or whatever. And it's like, nope, has like 4 credits, started acting 2 years ago. Or like, you imagine deciding to be an actor at like 75 and being like, yes, I will do a hot old lady joke.
I thought like as far as the physical comedy went, she did a really good job because it was like very funny watching her trying to bend over.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Joe, did it get you going?
I was waiting for it. I was watching it and I was like, everyone's going to ask me about this woman. And once again, I will reiterate that though I like older women, Rue McClanahan was like 44 when I said she was attractive. And we are all almost 40.
She looked like she was 64, though.
That's the thing. It was a different look. If you look at girls at that age then versus now, it's totally different situation.
It's like a Just for Men scenario. She's got the experience to show you it is, but she's also got the energy to show you how it is. You know what I mean?
No.
Right. So as this woman's leaving, a girl by the name of Leah happens to walk in, and she's asking if the two are ready to help edit the hot tub commercial. She was actually, you see her in that intro too when they're filming it, or in the first scene, and they tell her, "Oh, like that's just small potatoes," and they got something big that they're working on now. And tell her that, she can just edit herself, especially on account of the fact that she's in film school and should be able to handle it. And I'll say this, we'll talk about it when it comes up. I knew exactly where this was heading.
Yeah, this is telegraphed pretty easy.
You knew what was coming. Maybe not the specifics, but you knew. Now we get into this montage of the two just like playing with this like mini basketball in the office. And that's when the song "You're a Prisoner" by Death is playing. I guess the Detroit tie-in didn't hit me. So I was just like, wait, what? I didn't expect like a Death song to pop up.
2, because they play
back to
in My
back.
Eyes later too, yeah.
Yeah, which is actually like immediately after, which is weird because like the montage kind of cuts into its own like sub-montage. While they're playing basketball, Sam's elbow bumps into a piece of glass that's like on the exterior door, like to get into the office, like right next to the door. And they're like, oh my God, like the door, like this glass is indestructible. So now the two have pivoted from playing basketball to we need to try to break this piece of glass, which is in their office, which is insane.
Before they do that, does everybody here know the story of Gary Hoy?
No.
This is immediately what I thought of. Look up Gary. I'll tell you the story, but look it up after. It's one of the funniest stories of all time. So Gary Hoy was an accountant this is Toronto in like the early 90s, right? So he had this like party trick in this high-rise building where he would always run to like scare people and jump into the window in the high rise to be like, see, you don't fall out. And he would like do it when they'd have like an office party or whatever. So eventually he goes to do it, when he's got like a student full of accounting students there, like a whole group of them. And he's like, you guys want to see how strong these windows are? And he runs and he jumps against it. And to be fair, the glass does not break. However, the whole pane of glass comes out of the window holding, and the dude sails down like 30 stories on the glass and, like, you know, explodes to death on the ground, right? Like, that was his party trick, and he just did it one too many times. And, like, it's one of those stories I've always just thought was so funny. I think I first heard it. Remember that show, like, A Million Ways to Die?
Yeah.
That was on, like, Spike
like
TV
on
when we
Spike
were in high
TV.
school. Yeah, that's where I first heard it, and then I looked it up later on. Like, there's definitely, like, a Wikipedia entry about it. It's been, like, written about on shows and everything, but the best thing about it is, like, they, like, looked for
I was gonna
lawsuits
say that's
and
like Book of
everything.
Darwinism or whatever.
Yeah, definitely Book of Darwinism. But they were like, to be fair, it didn't break. Like, the glass company has said to this day, they were like, our glass is good. It was shoddy craftsmanship and a dumbass who killed them. So, Gary Hoy, I thought of you during this scene.
That is horrifying.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
I don't even like being up in heights. Like, the
Me
older
neither.
I get, the less I like heights.
I've never been a heights guy, so I would never even entertain doing that if it was
No,
me.
neither do I. Neither would I.
They have that box of the Sears Tower in Chicago now that sticks out over...
Oh, fuck
never.
no.
You couldn't pay me enough to go stand on that.
Nope.
So these guys who are trying to break glass, I mean, they're just throwing everything they can find at it, like coffee pot, a phone, and then finally Tim has like this candle holder, and like he's like demonic at this time, like he's just like candle holder.
They're also chanting for everything, too. It's
Yeah.
like, coffee
And,
pot,
like,
coffee
and-
pot.
And they do finally break it, although he corrects and says it's not broken, it's just shattered. And then they grab, I like this, they grab this desk, but it's like so old and decrepit that as soon as they go to pick it up and like hoist it to the glass, it just collapses in their hands.
It's also one of those desks, too, though, that we all have seen these and maybe had them in places before where it's just a slab of wood attached to very thin sheet metal.
It's like a teacher's desk.
Yeah, like a teacher's desk where, like, you don't have to do that much to, like, rip the screws out of that because it's so thin, you know?
It's funny. What I liked about it was it collapsing like that was just realistic. Like that's just what would happen in real life,
Yeah.
where most people would dummy it up and reinforce it for the sake
Right.
of the show so it could go through the glass.
Or make it explode and make way funnier.
Yeah, so to see it just fall apart in their hands was just like, I don't know, it made it more relatable, and I don't know, that made me laugh. And when that happens, though, it reveals something from like one of the drawers. They found like an old bottle of like diet pills from the 70s, which was also used for speed. And like, should we take these? And you look up, and Sam already has a full mouthful of these pills.
He's got like 50 in his mouth.
They expire in 1974. Has anybody here ever taken real speed before?
No.
No.
Okay, I've taken real speed a lot. Like, not meth, but like pharmaceutical grade amphetamines. Nick, you'll know who I'm speaking about, but when we were like 18 and worked at the gas station, there was somebody who worked at the Honeydew who she was a user of hard drugs, and when you're a user of hard drugs and you fall asleep all the time, they prescribe you very strong speed so you can like not fall asleep in front of your car. But she didn't want any of those, so she just gave them to me. So I learned that if you just chew those, not swallow them, chew them, it gets into your bloodstream way faster. There were days, I remember being at your house, Jay. We were all sitting in the living room, like waiting to go out and drink for the night or whatever, and just like chewing on my lips, being like, because it like totally destroys your brain chemistry. It is a
Sounds
weird
great.
high to be on.
Yeah, sounds like
Yeah.
a blast.
Yeah, it was always fun. To be honest with you, it was really, really fun until then later on. It'd be like 2 a.m. and everyone would be like, I'm going to bed. And I'd be like, I'm going to walk the beach for 4 hours because I have so much energy and you can't just like sit down when you're like that. But it was fun times.
There's very few feelings that I can experience that are more uncomfortable than being over caffeinated. It's like I would watch Jay drink all the energy drinks back in the day, and you guys with like the caffeine pills in like middle school that was for some reason. And if I have too much coffee, I'm like nauseous and shaky. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't know why you would like do that on purpose.
Well, that's a thing, though. I mean, for me, the reason I would drink such an insane amount of like energy drinks and coffee and stuff was the fact that my caffeine tolerance was so high that it did nothing to me. So, and
Yeah.
I remember being kids, like when we were in high school, like me and Joe would like go to like Bickford's and drink like a pot of coffee at night and then be like, then go home and go to bed.
Yeah, like with no effect. We drank that much, we ruined it for ourselves.
Yeah. And to this day, like my caffeine tolerance is just astronomical. And I was almost completely off caffeine for like a couple of years. and I like dabble again now. And even then, I thought the reset would help, but it really, not by much. A little bit, but not by much.
I did a decade of no caffeine, and that first like month or so where I was back was definitely like being on uppers again. Like you drink a big coffee from Starbucks or something, and you would just be like jittery and shaky and sweaty. It was like a really weird. It's not as fun in your late 30s as it was in your late teens. I will tell you that much.
I was just going to say that there's a difference between 16-year-old us and almost 40-year-old us that I don't like that feeling either. I get almost borderline panic attacks if I'm over caffeinated.
Oh yeah, anxiety comes real quick.
Anytime I feel effects from caffeine, it's not the ones I'm supposed to feel. Like, I'm a little bit more alert and less tired. It's more I feel it in my heart, and now I feel like a little queasy because it's making me nervous.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not like what I wanted of that, so.
Right, yeah.
Oh, man, I feel like the more and more we've been doing episodes, the more it's just we're getting old, and we're just, like, coming to terms with it, and we're just talking it out. Like,
it's like a therapy session for us as we, like, grapple with our mortality and realizing that this is like our bodies ourselves, but for a bunch of dudes who are almost 40, we're like accepting our changing bodies.
You don't think you're getting old until you're sitting there going, coffee makes me queasy sometimes. I'm like,
it's like, I can't have coffee after like 4 p.m. I'll never get to bed. You're like, oh, we turned the corner.
It's even crazier too, because like I feel like it's not a gradual thing either. It's like fucking one day there's 10 things wrong with you.
Yep.
And it's like, where did this, why is this happening all at the same time?
I swear.
It's really frustrating.
I feel like it was the day I turned 30 was when I could no longer like go through the night without having to take a piss.
I go so much now, yeah.
So I drink a lot. Like I consume a lot of liquid throughout the day, but I used to be able to like drink glass after glass after glass of water right before I would go to bed and still be fine. And now that is not, now I have to be like, okay, 1 glass, okay, but like I can't just drink 3 glasses of water consecutively and then go to bed. That's not going to work anymore.
For me, it's not even just bed. I can't go an hour car ride without having to pee. Like that's just how it is now.
Oh.
Like we've mapped out for certain rides. Like if we're going to Boston, we know like what exits have like the rest stop that you can just go pee at real quick. Like because there's nothing worse than being like trying to find a coffee shop or like a gas station when you really have to pee and you go in and they're like, it's for employees only. And you're like, I'm gonna piss on the wall then. I can't handle it. But I think that's like a thing of getting older.
You live in Maine. Just pull over and piss on a tree. No one's gonna see you. No one lives in Maine.
I keep my state beautiful. I don't just go pee willy-nilly everywhere. I'll use a bathroom like an adult.
I bring all my pee to Massachusetts. So anyways, now that they're all sped up, you see the two of them now, like, all high off the speed, and they're going over this pitch, which is basically a man is driving down the street in a Chrysler, and he spots his daughter walking into a tattoo parlor owned by bikers, where she's going to get her nipples pierced. And they're talking about, like, a drop of red blood rolls down her milky black breast.
This won't translate well because you have to understand how manic they look while they're saying all of this.
I like the joke, though, of calling back that they think of people both in different colors. I thought it was like a funny callback so quick.
As this man is watching his daughter apparently get her nipples pierced, he just looks and goes, oh, my baby's all grown up. Gotta let her fly. Chrysler, time to fly. It's like, even if they didn't show, like, in their version of the story, they're saying, like, you would see full breast. But imagine any commercial, like, even if it was hiding, where a father's watching his daughter get her nipples pierced.
Yeah, no.
Would say she's finally grown up.
Yeah.
In all honesty, you'd remember that ad.
That's true.
To be
But would you
fair-
remember what it was for?
You probably wouldn't, but you'd remember it.
I like that it cuts after they're, like, celebrating to them at the bar, like, moments later. But they're, like they've come down from the speed. And they were all like, we can't show boobs in a commercial.
There's something, I mean, like, even from, like, a lesser standpoint of, like, not drugs, ever, like, you think of, like, go back at ideas you had when you were drinking too much with your friends, like, you write something out or whatever. Like, there's always the next day where you're like, that's just not going to work. Like, we thought it was so genius at the time.
The bartender, when
God.
they ordered 2 more beers and and she asked, hot or cold? And like, what? Like, and Tim's like, come on, man. And then you just cut to this old guy at the other end of the bar, like picking up this like steamy hot beer. And it got me. I wasn't expecting it. And the cutaway to him drinking his hot beer. Like,
This
so
killed
weird.
me. And then the next scene they do with the guy, I think, is low-key the funniest joke in the whole episode. We'll get to it in a minute.
They realize that their commercial is about to air on television. So they asked the girl behind the bar, like, hey, would you mind turning the TV on? So now we see that hot tub commercial, and wow. So we know that the girl, the art school student, is the one who edited it. And it's just like all these weird clips. So it's a little artsy and weird at first, but then it's just like candid footage of him talking to one of the girls who's like doing like his makeup for the commercial. And he's just like, my God, you're beautiful. You really knocked me out. You know that?
He's like staring straight at her chest too while he's doing it. He's not reading her eyeline at all.
He's like, ever kiss a guy like me? Would you? No, probably got a boyfriend. And then my favorite part where he goes, I must disgust you.
No. He says, do you have a boyfriend?
Oh, yeah, right before
you
that.
give a boyfriend? Is he young and virile? That must disgust you. He says that.
No, he says, I must disgust you after. He says that about the boyfriend, but then says, I must disgust you.
Remember when he says it about the boyfriend, that then cuts to the guy drinking the steamy beer, and he's agreeing with him? Which I think is low-key the funniest joke of the entire episode. It's just a quick cutaway, but I love that they have the same mindset.
I love that he also picks up a piece of bologna off the ground.
Oh my God, that was so gross, because there's no like good way to shoot that.
Which also, isn't floor meat one of the nicknames for Meredith in The Office in a later episode?
When he also tells that girl, like, I wish I would have met you when I was 18. I was amazing then. And then after that commercial's done, it cuts back to like the news program that was on, and he goes, the news anchor's like, wow, normally I don't comment on commercials, but that was very bad.
I love the idea. What's funny about that too is that like I don't know if you can see the commercials playing if you're on the news. I think they just like get a blank screen and they count you back in.
Maybe through a monitor, but like not with full sound.
Yeah.
And I get that they told this girl like just edit it so they didn't have to do the editing because like they had other stuff to worry about, but you would think before that gets turned in to be aired, they would at least proof watch it.
Yeah, something.
At least once, being the owners of the... But also, I think we're establishing they're not like the best owners of a company to begin with.
They didn't edit the commercial because they were fucked up on speed.
Yeah.
Making up stories about nonsense. Like, they're just not good at it.
And then from there, you see the two just sitting on the hood of the car, and they're talking, and Sam's kind of worried that, you know, this commercial's obviously terrible, and they have nothing ready for Chrysler.
Before, when they left the bar, she goes, do you want a goodie bag for those beers? And Sam goes, what are you talking about?
That's a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea. It caught me like pretty good.
So now that they're sitting on the car, they're just kind of like, everything's all messed up. Like, you know, we're behind and everything. And Sam's like, well, you know, remember like when we first took over the company and like how everyone quit and the clients all left, but like a year later, we finally got someone.
They say also that everyone quit and the clients all left on the same day, which
yeah,
I really love. They're like, I'm in charge now, and everybody left that day.
And imagine too, like whether or not you believe in Tim or not, but the idea like his father just like had like a mental breakdown and being committed, and it's like, all right, you know, listen, things are real bad with Dad. I just want you guys to know that I'm here and I'm going to take care of the company. And they're all like, fuck off, and they just left.
Everyone leaves.
He must have made a name for himself before his dad left power.
Because you think like this poor dude's probably going through a lot.
Well, think of it too, though. Like if you think of, you know, everybody, you know, you've been to all like your parents' work before, right? Like you go to see like your mom or your dad or whatever at work. People who work with your parents have an idea of how you are as a kid. So they probably had a good idea of what he was like. And when he took over, they were like, we know. It's not like they were like, we'll give him a week. They were like, oh, this guy's a fuck up or out.
They're having this conversation, which is kind of like, you know, a means for them to be kind of uplifted and feel motivated to keep working, right? That's kind of the whole purpose of the conversation. But during it, now there's like a garbage truck parade that happens.
So we're to believe, I guess it's like 4 a.m, and this is when they all go out.
Like they all just, leave for the day. Like I was so confused by it. They know all of them by name, and they're like super excited to watch it. Like, what the fuck is happening?
This whole thing feels very much like post knowing this very much feels like just a sketch from I Think You Should Leave. Like the whole garbage can thing just seems like a quick 5-minute thing they would do on that.
It's funny too because I feel like I know it was more complicated than this, but like I feel like you can tell what Tim is writing and you can tell what Sam is writing.
I think so, yeah.
You know, it's especially if you have seen I Think You Should Leave. You can definitely see the line, I think.
And while these garbage trucks are going by, they're like, you know, like this is like, you know, what Chrysler is. You know, it's not just a company; it's these guys, it's our friends. Yeah, every Chrysler is the city of Detroit on 4 wheels. And they wait, what? Like they realize, like, you know, Sam just said something that like they get the pitch now. Like that's the big tagline for the ad. So now you cut to the next day and the two are in the office getting ready for the big meeting and like they're super pumped because they have this pitch like all together now. And the secretary hands them their morning hot dogs, which was like just like a box of hot dogs like in wrappers.
A box of hot dogs and a jumbo-sized bag of potato chips.
I think maybe as I say some of these things out loud, I'm realizing that your Freddy Got Fingered thing is not as
Thank you.
as it should.
It's very much, I feel like, in the same world. Also, I looked up these potato chips. They are a Detroit brand, better made, and you can buy them on Amazon. I'm a little tempted. All of their chips are gluten-free.
I love a good potato chip.
Me too. And you can get like mix packs. If you guys want to like split a box of them, we can get like a bunch of different flavors.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, I'm down.
I mean, sure.
I mean, like, who doesn't love a good bag of chips, right?
I don't know if we've had this conversation, and we've had so many food tangents already, and I feel like maybe we talked about it, but I do prefer like a good original chip over a super flavored one.
We have, yeah, because I'm the same with you. I like just regular chips.
Again, not to say I dislike the flavors. I don't want people to get upset with me here, but
okay, since we have talked about this, I'll pivot a little bit. Something this company is also very much known for is their potato sticks. What are you guys' thoughts on the potato stick? Because I love a good potato stick.
Only out of a can.
Yeah, it has to be in a can.
I don't want a bag of it. It's too hard because I like to drink the sticks.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep, me too.
You want to choke and half chew all of them.
Right, exactly.
back when you talk about the gas station that you and Nick used to work at, there used to be a Subway attached to there. And the one thing I liked doing back then was I would go to Subway and get a sub and then go over to the gas station and get a little tin of the potato sticks and put them in the sub. Think of it like that little crunch.
That's a good idea, yeah.
That's a good call, yeah. Because I love a good chip in a sandwich, but it's not economical sometimes. But the potato sticks really do it.
A turkey and cheese with a nice, like, Lay's, just regular Lay's chip, like, smushed in there. Oh, it's so fucking good.
It is good.
Yeah, you need, like, the good thin chip like Lay's for that.
As they're heading out to this meeting, they run into Leah, like, right as they're about to get on the elevator. And then she's like, oh, hey, guys, what did you think of the commercial? And they're like, no, Leah, you tanked it. He's like, you shit the bed. And they're like, you absolutely blew it. they're ripping into her. And I don't know. I can't do it justice because like the cadence at which they said it was so aggressive.
There's also something super funny about getting out a bunch of funny things at somebody perfectly timed to an elevator door closing on you. Like the timing of that makes that joke so much funnier.
And now that they're gone, they're driving to the interview. And the two are like taking like a quick moment to kind of reflect on everything and congratulate one another on like the situation because it's like a huge moment for them. They big pitch with Chrysler. I'm like, this is probably going to be like, if all goes well and they're feeling so confident about this, could be the thing that like launches this company back to where it was. So as they're doing this, Tim's eyes are off the road and he's looking at Sam. And as one would expect, boom, they slam into Carter Grant. Like brutal hit, like he flips over the car.
Yeah.
One of those, like, obviously they're using like a stunt double, but that even like with movie magic, that
stunt
hurts.
guy earned his money that day, man. That was a brutal stunt to do.
I mean, it's just, you can equate it to wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's scripted, but that does not mean it doesn't hurt. You know?
Right. You still had to get hit by a car and then flip and land on the ground.
Yeah.
How many takes do you think you got being hit by a car like
one?
That?
You've got one, and you hope you get it because you can't do that twice.
Yeah.
They get out of the car, and they're worried that he's going to, like, recognize them when he comes to. So they put... The logic is weird here, but just to follow. They get that empty bag of potato chips and put it over his head, and then drag his body into the bushes, and they toss leaves on him.
That also means between the two of them, they ate a box of hot dogs and a family size, like the kind you bring to a barbecue size bag of chips in the morning on the way to their 8 a.m. meeting.
When you're seeing them do this, are you assuming that he's dead at this point?
I was on the fence. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's on the fence as well.
I was leaning dead, but I wasn't sure. And you cut to the two of them now, like inside, like checking in for the meeting. And I'm like, but why? Like, for what reason? He's...
Well, yeah, but if they didn't show up for the meeting, they would become suspects.
Yeah, that's suspicious.
Yeah, that's true.
And you can see, like, they're a little dirty themselves now from the situation. And the secretary's apologizing, and she's like, oh, he's never missed a meeting like this, and offers to call his cell. And Sam's like, call his cell phone? What are you gonna call it? And
Waka, waka, waka.
I also love here too, though. She says, "I'm sorry, he's missed a meeting," and they're covered in dirt from burying him in the woods. And he goes, "It's fine. It's just very unprofessional," which I thought was such a fucking great tossed off line.
The what are you gonna call your cell phone line, Tim? Tim loves so much he's insisting like, hey, you have to do stand up. He's like, I'm going to. So now as this is happening, the secretary sees something from outside the window, and you cut over and you see Grant walking like a zombie towards the building with the chip bag over his head.
He looks like Scarecrow.
Yeah.
And eventually, like, he's able to get the bag off his head, revealing himself to everybody, because there's a bunch of people in that front office area. It just collapses into the grass.
That's also like the worst advertisement for that chip company ever. It's like, catch us on an episode of TV show on Comedy Central tonight.
I do like how they're like, oh, look, it's someone with the chip bag on their head emerging from the woods.
How do we have all these local companies represented, but yet no Faygo anywhere?
I was surprised for no Faygo, too. Which, again, we've had Faygo before. Regular flavors, very good root beer.
It's at the end of the day, it's just a regional,
It's
like,
just a
store brand
good soda company.
Yeah, like, that's all it is.
I mean, I would never try any of the weird ones where it's like triple cherry, fizz, purple. Like, they do, like, they're one of those companies who has, like, 50 flavors a year. But, like,
those are things like, you wish you could try, like, a Dixie cup of it. Like, but it's like, I don't want to buy a bottle of this, like, cotton candy soda. Yeah. Yeah, now what? I don't care if it's 30 cents. Like, it's a waste if I'm going to, like, if I only want to take a sip of it. After the collapse, we cut to later on where he's in the hospital. And he already seems, like, pretty good at this point. He's joking around with the nurse.
he seems like he wasn't hurt at all in this scene.
Right. He's 100% better now, just sitting down in a hospital bed. And Tim and Sam walk in with, like, a single flower and a heart-shaped box of chocolates. It's like, hey, remember us? Like, when's the last time you remember seeing us? He's like, at the steakhouse, right? Yep, because that's the last time we saw you. They think now is an appropriate time to start the pitch, right in the hospital room.
No, you're gonna hear the pitch.
And Grant's like a nice guy. He's like, hey, listen, like, guys, I'm really sorry, but we went with the other agency, but then he says, I only really gave you the meeting, like, out of respect for, Tim's father, and like, why tell them that?
Yeah.
like you could be like, hey, after the accident, like, things were weird, and I was already half committed to them anyway, so like, we just wanted to get this going, so I went with the other company.
Like, they flew all the way down here. I gave it to them, but we do 10 commercials a year. Why don't we talk in a few months? We have another car coming out. Like, you could blow them off and keep it, like, without hurting their feelings.
And he said it nice. He didn't mean it in, like, a disrespectful way, but, like, the idea of telling them, hey, I only really gave you the interview, but, like, with no intention of ever hiring you.
He's also an actor that's very hard to play mean.
Yeah.
Like, I really like Jason Sudeikis. He can't do, like, super mean guy. Even when he tries to, it always comes off as, like, he's pretty likable.
Yeah.
Which is, like, not the worst problem in the world to have, right? But, like, everybody thinks I'm super likable. It's like, that's not the worst problem,
He's like, listen, you guys pretty much only do, like, late night furniture store ads. Like, this, Chrysler is a little out of your league. And now they're, like, pissed. And, like, now you're definitely going to hear the pitch. And they're just kind of, like, going over this whole pitch with it, but they're, like, yelling it at him. And he's got, like, his ears covering, his hands covering his ears, so he doesn't have to listen to them. It's like, Sam's like, oh, you don't want to hear it? I'm pulling the plug on your ass.
He's going to unplug the lamp.
He unplugs the lamp.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not on life support, you idiot.
This is also a great one of his dark toned yells, too. There's, like, Batman voice. It's like, do it, kill him. It's just so fucking dark.
It's getting a little wild at this moment, but they do calm down a little bit and kind of settle down here. And right as the two are about to leave, Tim, like, tries one more time to start that pitch over, but he just goes, Grant's just like, come on, man. Like, just go. So now from there, they cut to the Hot Tub King store, and Tim and Sam walk in, and the King is talking to a customer, takes a break when he sees them walk in, and they go to apologize to him. And he's like, when that commercial first came out, like, things were pretty bad at home. My bags were basically packed. But then for whatever reason, I guess him and his wife decided to just have sex one last time.
Bret Hart school.
And for the first time ever, they went with, as he calls it, woman on top. He talked about how amazing it was. And then they tried it again and realized it wasn't a fluke.
It wasn't a fluke. Sex with her on top was good the second time. I was, like, hyperventilating laughing as this scene went on. This is, like, one of those monologues that should be, like, Emmy worthy. If I'm ever gonna, like, audition for community theater, I'm going in with this monologue. It is fucking perfect.
And he talks about how while doing woman on top, he can last a lot longer. He can kind of stall.
Stall.
So she can get what she needs. And then it's like, and then when she was done, I just flipped her over and I went real fast. So I got what I needed.
It's the fucking best monologue ever.
I don't want to get gross into too many details, but like he couldn't finish doing woman on top.
I think it's more that like when she was done, he wanted to do it the way he liked it. It was an equal opportunity thing. So it's a good thing. That's a couple who's finding ways to,
Sure. I don't know who wouldn't like woman on top, but
I don't know. Yeah, but
Yeah, I don't know.
like there's no bad way, right?
no, there's bad ways.
I was gonna say there probably is.
There's the ones that are just like an unnecessary cardio test on you,
Well, sure.
or uncomfortable places, like when you're young and you think having like sex in a car is like exciting and cool, and then like you realize as you get older, it's like it's just super uncomfortable for everybody. There's really no advantage. Like we're adults and have houses now. There's no need for this.
Bathtubs, not fun.
Bathtub, interesting.
Bathtub, I'm with you, Gordo. Not a great place.
Yeah, not a great place. Too small. Unless you got like a big bathtub.
And one of you is going to hit your head in the faucet. Like, it's
If you-
just a matter of
If
time.
you hit up the hot tub king, maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say in a hot tub, totally different.
I would say, too, at this place, imagine how fun it is to work at this place when the hours, or like when it's closed or whatever. The sign they show at the beginning says hot tubs, fireplaces, and billiards. That means that place has a bunch of working hot tubs, a bunch of cool fireplaces, and a bunch of pool tables. You could have the best party in that place.
Well, don't most pool places like that sell outdoor pools or pool services turn into pool table?
There is one on Route 1.
There is one, and they turn into like a pool table reseller.
But you
in
got to
the winter.
diversify for the winter.
So Jay, I don't know if you were there or not when our buddy Derek got a hot tub and we had to
No.
pick it up at that place on Route 1. I was so blown away. I had never been in a pool store before. And we walked into this pool store, and it's a very large store, and it's obviously got a bunch of above ground pools set up, all full of water. Why?
Oh.
Why? There's like 15 pools full of water inside this store.
It's like, I can see it and imagine what it looks like with water in it. You don't have to do this for my benefit.
Are you allowed in the pools?
I doubt it. Like, I'm sure there's some weird liability thing involved. Like, put a sheet of plexiglass over the top, simulate the water somehow. There's 100,000 gallons of water in this fucking warehouse now for no good reason.
Unnecessary, waste of water.
I just thought it was the weirdest thing.
No, you know what? That's a company that I would buy from because they go the extra mile.
No, you could go, I want this one, though. The one, like, I want the model.
Drain this now.
No, I want the water with it.
Yeah.
So that conversation kind of ends with him, thanking the two because essentially trying woman on top saved his marriage. From there, the next scene is just them going home for the night. And you see them both kind of individually going to their respective homes. And Sam's house is like under like severe construction inside. There's like plastic and ladders everywhere. It's like, it's looking pretty bare. And Tim gets home and you see him meet his wife and he gives her a kiss and they start talking about their day. And he's like super engaging and like very like, as she's telling telling him about her day, he's like just very, I don't know, being a good husband really, like almost overdoing it, but it was fine. And I like that she was talking about something that she had to lift. I can't remember what her occupation was.
She works at the auto plant.
Okay. And then he asked if she had her hernia belt on. And she's like, you worry too much. It's like, I worry about you.
It's because they're talking about her day at work where like the chassis of a pickup truck fell on a guy and he was screaming and they were laughing at him. And she had to lift the chassis of the truck up herself. And that's why he was like, did you wear your hernia belt? Like they're like small talk of how insane her day was also.
Yeah.
And then after that conversation, you get back into Sam's house and he's looking at his dream board and he takes Land Chrysler account off of it and he replaces it with one that just says woman on top.
So great. Did you read any of the other things on the board?
I couldn't look at it.
I couldn't
quick
get
enough.
him now.
One is lunch with Billy Crystal, which I would put on my board.
That's a good
Fair.
one, yeah.
It was one of those, because like the woman on top thing came out right after to make it the joke. Otherwise, like the idea of like taking something off your dream board, like is just kind of inherently sad.
Now, has anybody here ever made a dream board or a vision board or anything?
No.
Okay, I have made one. I'm sure anybody who's a listener here, 100-something episodes in, knows it's not really my thing, and I'm not into esoteric or whatever type of stuff, but I was told to do it and asked to do it by somebody, not my wife, like somebody who's like a friend, was like, do it. And you put that stuff out into the world, you can do it. And to be fair, everything I put on that board did come true, but one thing. And that one thing was, it was like all this different stuff I wanted. And then I put a bunch of cutout goldfish crackers that I was like, if I do this, they will make gluten-free goldfish crackers or Cheez-Its. I know it. The only thing that didn't come true was that. The other stuff was very good, but I am a little sad at the one thing.
I'm going to print out a few pictures of Jennifer Love Hewitt.
You know she's real, right? She
Yes, but,
Yeah.
but she doesn't exist here in my space.
She's home right now being like, I feel awkward, like I'm on somebody's vision board right
Something's
now.
wrong.
Yeah. Why am I on Jay's vision board?
And then she turns the TV on and Ghostbusters 2016's on.
There you go, full circle.
Who is that? Who's that handsome man with the awkward length hair?
And she's like, why would I watch this terrible, terrible movie? And she goes to bed in her $1 million house in her gold-plated rocket car, and she never calls Jay.
So I have some of the other things that Sam had on his dream board. One says Tokyo 2020, lunch with Billy Crystal, as you mentioned, improv laser tag technology. I wonder if that was spelled wrong, though. Maybe it's improve.
I feel like that should be improve.
Yeah, I don't know what it says in the actual episode. What I'm reading says improv. Major League at Bat, Ice Bucket Challenge, which is a little late.
But also, like, you could just go outside and do that in about 3 minutes.
Ride motorcycle, catch boomerang, get Tim to try weed, and black belt.
I mean, those are all fairly attainable things. That's the other thing about a vision board, too. You got to make it
Major
somewhat
League
attainable.
at Bat is a little tough. That might be a little
Yeah.
That
challenging.
one is not gonna
Arguably
happen.
impossible.
Yeah.
And lunch with Billy Crystal are probably pretty hard to do unless you gave money to a charity or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not impossible.
Also, when you work for an advertising firm, so you can schedule a lunch meeting.
That's true, too. That reminds me, too, there was that weird Billy Crystal show that lasted for, like, one season that was, I think it was him and Josh Gad, that was very much like a Curb Your Enthusiasm type show on NBC. That would be an interesting show for us to cover.
Wasn't it just called The Comedians?
Maybe?
Only there's a way to figure out the name of the show.
If any of those fans out there know what show I'm talking about, City Slickers 3.
So while Sam's like looking at his vision board, you hear Tim calling for him. And that's when you realize that their houses are side by side. And they're both kind of just talking through their windows and congratulating each other for the day they had. And then you hear, you're talking to my brother? So now we find out that Tim's married to Sam's sister. And she's like, how's flipping that house going, you idiot? It's like, you're the idiot, Chrissy. I bought this house for $20,000 and it's a lot harder than I thought.
I thought that was the most realistic line of the entire
Yeah.
show. Aside from the $20,000 part, if you're like, I bought this house, it's a lot harder than I thought. That is the most accurate
I
description.
liked how he kept the tone and cadence as he's admitting that it's harder than he thought, though. Like, he still had that matter-of-factness in his voice. And basically just kind of closes out with Sam and Tim exchanging goodnights. And Sam can't shut the window, and he just walks off. He's like, never mind.
No, he goes, who actually cares?
Yeah, who actually cares?
He closes like a very nice, though, modern window that opens out, not up.
Yeah.
And then Sam can't get the like painted shut 100-year-old window to close.
And that was the conclusion of the episode. So, yeah, I mean, I don't, again, have much. I never saw the show. I just know that it was recommended to us to do a couple times. And then again, like, I think it just made sense to really, I mean, if we're being honest, ride the coattails of, like, I think you should leave becoming so memeable. But yeah, no, I don't really have a lot of extra tidbits about the show. I don't really know much other than, what we saw. There wasn't a lot of, like, info looking up on it, like, not a lot of crazy stuff about it. So I don't know if anything you guys want to add before we move forward.
I don't really know.
Not too much. I think we covered a lot of it. I will say, though, I had never heard of the TV show Scandal, and I had to look that up, and then I was like, oh, I never would have watched that show. But I thought that was a
I've
weird
heard of
little
Scandal.
I've
joke.
heard of it. I've never watched it, though.
Yeah, neither have I, but
I did see that for a while, Portia de Rossi is in it.
oh, okay.
And so is Joe Morton, who I love, who the guy in Terminator 2 who's like, I don't know how much longer I can hold it. That guy who ends up figuring out that he causes the apocalypse. So I like those two people, but it didn't look like a show we would enjoy.
Well, I guess to move forward then, might as well get into the green light or cancel. I'll go in the order I got you guys in. Nick, starting with you.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty easy green light. I had no idea what this show was before watching it, aside from the fact. So I do feel like Tim Robinson can go both way. He can be a little much sometimes, and I was worried that might be the case with this, and it wasn't the case. And I was really happy about that. I love Sam. I keep wanting to say Tim Robbins and Sam Rockwell every time I talk about both.
They have similar last names, which makes it a little.
Yes, and it's Tim Robinson and Sam
It's Sam Richardson and Tim
Richardson.
Robinson.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. I love the two of them together is just really funny, interesting chemistry. I want to know what happens with this job. Are they just going to keep failing? Are they going to fail up? Who else is going to be involved in the show? I'm actually very excited to go watch episode 2 of this. So this is a very easy green light. I was happy to get this one put across the table here. I would never have seen this otherwise, and I'm glad I saw it. So green light.
Joe.
Yeah, I'm with Nick here, and following up on that, I would assume that is the premise of the show going forward, is that they're always going to have some wacky adventure, but you're also going to always get a new commercial in every episode, and the promise of that, I think, is such a great sell, because the last one was so funny. So if they just keep doing that every episode, I think that's such an easy thing you'd want to keep seeing. I had never seen this show. Bummer of this show is it's on like the one streaming platform I don't have.
Which would that be? Is that Paramount Plus?
Paramount
yeah,
Plus,
it's on Paramount Plus. So I'm either gonna have to like get Paramount Plus for a week or see if these are like cheap enough to buy on Amazon or something, because I like it so much that I want to watch. I tried to show my wife today because I was like, I think you'll really find this funny, and then I was like, oh, god damn it, we don't have this channel.
We always we internally talk about Paramount Plus all the time, by the way, and it's like it's $5. Like we can just.
It's not the cost; it's the having so many others that it doesn't make sense to do one more without getting rid of.
But then you think about like if you just said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna buy the Detroiters." I knew I was gonna say
it would be $20 for both seasons.
Yeah, and then you're like, well, that would have just paid for like 4 months of having Paramount Plus anyways. So then, how often are you gonna rewatch it? You know, so
right, yeah. So I'll probably just cave so I can do that. And like next time there's like a rainy weekend where it's so bad out that you really can't do anything, that's probably gonna be the plan. Like get pizza, watch that. Gordo, also, I think you should leave. We watched some earlier. There's one in the first season that literally is just the plot of Kirk Van Houten's Can I Borrow a Feeling? And I will send that to you because I think you're going to enjoy that so much. This show had me laughing the entire time. The absurdist humor of so much of it was so good. The guy drinking the hot beer and then agreeing with Eddie Spaghetti or whatever, that was so fucking great. This is a huge green light.
Gordo.
I'm actually going to disagree with the both of you. I did not like the two characters in this. I thought they were a little too much, especially the trying to break the glass scene. It was just like entirely just too much, too over the top and too long. There were funny parts in this, but as a total show, I got kind of the closure that I wanted. You know, they went home, they said goodnight, good job, you know, shut the door. There was kind of nothing there to make me want to come back and want to see it. I don't know. It just didn't agree with me. I can see why.
Did it upset your stomach?
What?
Did it upset your stomach? You said it didn't agree with you?
It didn't agree with me. No.
I completely derailed you there, huh? Yeah.
You did. You completely derailed me. So cancel.
Okay. Listen, I'm with Nick and Joe. I had no idea what to expect. Again, it's my pick, but I never watched it. I just thought it would be kind of a good opportunity, and then to get a couple of the fan picks out there. Like I said, it had been brought up before, so it seemed like a nice way to get that done. I thought it was really funny. I could see myself it's an easy show to watch, and it's one of those ones that, you know, you can kind of keep it on. You're as long as you're 80% paying attention, like that's good. Like I like that, you know, and I can kind of get some work done, and you know, I don't know. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and it's a green light for me. And I will say I've messaged the man missing, Ferg, and Ferg actually, and I didn't actually see this coming. He's with Gordo. He's canceling it.
I thought he would.
I thought he would too.
He said it felt like a second-rate Workaholics, which is funny because I did compare it to Workaholics, only I meant it in a positive way. He said that the show lost him with the window breaking scene, which I thought was funny. So
thank you. Ferg and I are one and the same.
There is a weird Gordo and Ferg have both canceled shows. Like they cannot do eccentric at all. It has to be very, very boilerplate. And I'm not like shitting on you. Like I understand.
Did you say Gordo can't do anything too far out?
Well,
Homeboys from Outer
all right,
Space,
Gordo's a
Gordo-
bad example because he ping pongs on his, methodology a lot. But Ferg, like I don't know, it's if it's too far outside of a certain spectrum, Ferg really doesn't like it, regardless of whether or not it's actually funny. I mean, it just doesn't agree with him, I guess. Yeah.
Well, before I got derailed, I just didn't. Not that the two main characters didn't have good chemistry. I just felt like they were too much. And the scenes were just a little bit too long. I feel like they should have cropped them a little bit and it just been a little bit shorter. It would have hit me a little differently instead of dragging it out. I don't like the drug. Is that a word? I mean, it is a word, but
Is drug a word?
is drug the past tense of drag?
Dragged.
Well, either way, it is now.
Yeah,
So I don't like how
dragged.
they drug out the scenes.
Well, all right. I'm glad we gave you more time to give a more clear and concise thought.
Thank you, space terrorist, for giving this all to us.
One thing I did want to mention before we close out too is as we talk about Gordo's inconsistency, we've mentioned before, Gordo often bets away his picks. And the first time that ever happened, I remember like legit going through like our episodes, like episode by episode, to try to see everything Gordo canceled because the goal was to find a show he'd dislike. So I'm like, let me see if there's any consistencies with his cancellations so I can find something that's kind of in tune with that. And there was nothing. It was like, it was so all over the place, the shows he likes and dislikes. There's like no rhyme or rhythm. So I was like, all right, well, I guess there goes that. But in any event, to close out, 3 out of 5. So congratulations to Detroiters. You do live on to see a second episode with us. So I want to thank all of you guys for listening. Go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to listen to us, to share with other people, our social medias. S1E1pod. I said at the top of the episode, hit us up. We love talking to you guys. It's been a lot of fun getting to know you guys and how you came to find us and then what shows you want to hear. We really do enjoy it. So keep it up. Message us. It's more rewarding that way to know like where these listens are going. And, we could see numbers when we look on our website, but to actually meet the people that enjoy our show is really cool. So keep it up. And that's it for this week, guys. Thank you again. We'll catch you again next week with another new episode. Thank you. Goodbye.
I think we got the best Billy Crystal.